Once upon a time in a faraway land, there was a little bunny named Benny. Benny lived in a cozy burrow under a giant oak tree with his mama and papa. Every night, Benny had a special routine before going to bed. He loved to say goodnight to everything around him. One starry night, as the moon glowed brightly in the sky, Benny slipped into his snug pajamas. Mama tucked him into bed, and Papa read him a lovely bedtime story. But Benny couldn't sleep yet. He needed to say goodnight to all his favorite things. First, Benny scampered to his window and whispered, "Good night, moon." The moon seemed to shine even brighter, as if it was winking at him. Next, Benny tiptoed to his shelf of toys and softly said, "Good night, Teddy. Good night, Mr. Train." Each toy looked cozy and ready for its own sleep. Benny then hugged his favorite blanket, saying, "Good night, Blankie." Lastly, Benny peered outside at the twinkling stars, the swaying trees, and the little fireflies dancing in the night. He whispered, "Good night, stars. Good night, trees. Good night, fireflies." As Benny climbed back into bed, Mama and Papa kissed his forehead. "Good night, Benny," they said softly. Benny closed his eyes, feeling warm and happy. The moon, stars, and all his favorite things watched over him as he drifted into a dreamy sleep. The end. Once upon a time, in a cozy little burrow nestled at the base of a tall, whispering tree, lived a young rabbit named Benny. Benny was a fluffy, curious bunny with fur as white as snow and eyes as bright as the stars. Every night, as the moon climbed high in the sky, Benny would snuggle into his soft, leaf-covered bed and drift off to sleep. But Benny had a special secret. Unlike other rabbits, he had bedtime buddies who came alive under the moonlight. Benny's first buddy was Oliver Owl, who perched quietly near Benny's bed. With his big, wise eyes and feathers that shimmered silver in the starlight, Oliver would hoot gentle lullabies that lulled Benny into a peaceful slumber. Then there was Rosie Raccoon, who loved bedtime stories. Rosie's bushy tail wrapped around Benny snugly as she read tales of adventure and bravery from a tiny glowing book she carried. But Benny's favorite bedtime buddy of all was Sparky Squirrel. Sparky had a sparkly, golden acorn that glowed like a night light. He would place it beside Benny's bed, and its warm, twinkling light would chase away any shadows that might sneak into the burrow. Sparky was always brimming with energy, and would tell Benny about all the fascinating things he had seen while leaping from tree to tree during the day. One night, a strong wind howled through the forest, making the tall tree above Benny's burrow sway and creak. Benny felt a little scared and couldn't sleep. His bedtime buddies quickly noticed. Oliver flew over and whispered, "Don't worry, Benny. The wind is just singing a song to the trees." Rosie curled up closer and said, "And I'll tell you the story of the brave rabbit who hopped through the storm and found a pot of golden carrots." Sparky placed his glowing acorn right next to Benny's bed, saying, "This light will keep us all safe." With his friends by his side, Benny felt safe and warm. The stories and the gentle light made him forget all about the storm outside. He closed his eyes, listening to Oliver's soothing lullabies and Rosie's enchanting tale. Just as the brave rabbit in Rosie's story found the golden carrots, Benny found his way to the sweetest dreams, all thanks to his wonderful bedtime buddies. From that night on, Benny knew that no matter how windy or stormy it got, his bedtime buddies would always be there to keep him safe and sound. And so, every night, Benny's burrow was filled with the magic of friendship, stories, and the comforting glow of Sparky's golden acorn. And they all slept happily ever after. Once upon a time in a peaceful meadow, there lived a little rabbit named Benny. Benny was the youngest in his family and had the tallest, fluffiest ears in the whole meadow. He loved to hop around and explore every nook and cranny, but there was one thing Benny couldn't do very well. He couldn't fall asleep. Every night, Benny's family would gather under the large oak tree and cuddle up for bed. Mama Rabbit would always tell them wonderful stories, and Papa Rabbit would sing sweet lullabies that made everyone feel so cozy. But no matter how tired he seemed, Benny had trouble drifting off to dreamland. One evening, after Mama Rabbit had told a marvelous story about a brave squirrel, and Papa Rabbit had sung his last lullaby, Benny's eyes were still wide open. He sighed and looked up at the twinkling stars. "Why can't I fall asleep like everyone else?" he wondered. Just then, something magical happened. A gentle glow appeared beside Benny. It was Luna, the moon fairy. "Hello, little Benny," Luna whispered softly. "I heard you had trouble sleeping, so I've come to help." Benny's eyes grew wide with surprise and excitement. "Oh, Luna, can you really help me?" he asked eagerly. Luna smiled warmly. "Of course I can. But first, you must come with me on a special journey." With a wave of her sparkly wand, Luna lifted Benny gently into the night sky, where they floated among the stars. Benny's heart raced with wonder. They passed by glittering constellations, danced with fireflies, and even met a friendly owl who hooted a sweet, calming tune. Finally, Luna brought Benny to a cozy cloud bed. She tucked him in and began to sing a lullaby so soft and melodic, it sounded like a breeze through the willow trees. "Sleep, little Benny, sleep gentle and deep. Let the stars shine bright in the sky tonight. Dream with moonbeams and float in peaceful streams. Sleep, little Benny, sleep." As Luna's lullaby wrapped around him like a warm, fluffy blanket, Benny felt his eyes grow heavy. His little heart calmed, and a sweet smile spread across his face. For the first time, Benny felt truly sleepy. Luna watched over him until his gentle snores filled the night air. The next morning, Benny woke up in his family's burrow, feeling more refreshed and happier than ever. He excitedly told his family about his magical journey with Luna the Moon Fairy. From that night on, Benny had no trouble falling asleep. He still loved Mama Rabbit's stories and Papa Rabbit's lullabies, but now he had a little secret. A celestial lullaby sung by his moon fairy friend always played in his dreams. And so, in the peaceful meadow beneath the large oak tree, little Benny slept soundly ever after, knowing that Luna was always watching over him. Benny the rabbit lived in a cozy burrow at the edge of the carrot field. Every night he had trouble falling asleep. It wasn't that Benny didn't try. He would fluff his pillow of leaves, sip on carrot juice, and even count stars outside his tiny window. But no matter what he did, Benny just couldn't fall asleep. One day, Benny's best friend, Molly the squirrel, noticed the dark circles under his eyes. "Oh, Benny, why do you look so tired?" she asked with concern. Benny explained his sleepless nights as they nibbled on some carrot sticks. Molly thought for a moment and then exclaimed, "I have an idea. Why don't we ask Uncle Owl? He's very wise and might know a trick or two to help you sleep." Delighted with the idea, Benny and Molly made their way to the tall oak tree where Uncle Owl lived. Who needs my help?" hooted Uncle Owl as they approached. Benny explained his problem, and the wise old owl nodded slowly. I've seen this before," he said. "The trick is to create a bedtime routine that tells your body it's time to sleep." Uncle Owl suggested several steps: a warm bath, a bedtime story, and a Sleepytime song. Benny was eager to try. That evening, Molly helped Benny with his new bedtime routine. First, he took a warm bath with bubbles that made him giggle and yawn. Next, Molly read him a bedtime story about a brave bunny who found a golden carrot. Finally, they sang a soft, soothing song about twinkling stars and dreaming bunnies. To Benny's surprise, he felt his eyes getting heavier and heavier. As he snuggled into his leaf pillow, he whispered, "Thank you, Molly." Molly smiled and tiptoed out of the burrow. From that night on, Benny followed his new bedtime routine. He splashed in a bubbly bath, listened to a delightful story, and hummed the Sleepytime song. Not only did he fall asleep faster, but he also began to have the sweetest dreams. Benny the rabbit had found his bedtime bliss. Once upon a time, in a peaceful forest glade, there was a little rabbit named Benny. Benny had the softest fur and the kindest heart, But there was one thing he always worried about. He found it very hard to fall asleep at night. No matter how hard he tried, Benny would toss and turn in his cozy little bed of leaves, unable to drift off into dreamland. One bright morning, Benny's best friend, Tina the turtle, noticed his tired eyes and asked, "Benny, you look so sleepy. What's wrong?" Benny sighed and replied, "I just can't fall asleep, Tina. I try, but it never works." Tina, being the wise turtle she was, thought for a moment and said, "Maybe you need a bedtime routine. Let's go ask Wise Old Owl for advice. He knows everything about sleep." So Benny and Tina trotted over to the tallest tree in the forest, where Wise Old Owl lived. "Hello, Wise Old Owl," said Benny. "Can you help me? I can't seem to fall asleep at night." Wise Old Owl adjusted his spectacles and hooted gently, "Ah, my dear Benny, falling asleep is easier when you have a comforting routine. Let me tell you what to do." Wise Old Owl recommended a warm cup of chamomile tea, a calming bedtime story, and most importantly, a gentle, loving hug. "A hug?" Benny asked, confused. "Yes, Benny," Wise Old Owl replied with a twinkle in his eye. "A hug can make you feel safe and loved, which helps you sleep better." That night, Benny followed Wise Old Owl's advice. He drank his tea, listened to a delightful story read by Tina, and then she gave him the warmest, most comforting hug. And guess what? Benny felt safe, loved, and sleepy. As Benny closed his tired eyes, he felt a sense of calm wash over him. For the first time in many nights, Benny drifted off to sleep without any trouble. From then on, Benny always followed his new bedtime routine, and he never had a problem falling asleep again. And if he ever felt a bit worried, he knew he could count on a Sleepytime hug to make everything better. The end. Benny was a small, curious rabbit with soft white fur and large floppy ears. He lived in a vibrant forest filled with tall trees, friendly animals, and hidden treasures. Benny's favorite thing in the world was to explore every nook and cranny of the forest, searching for new adventures and surprises. One sunny morning, Benny discovered a cave tucked away behind a cluster of thick bushes. The entrance was just big enough for a rabbit his size to slip through. His whiskers twitching with excitement, Benny squeezed inside. The cave was cozy and warm, much different from the dark, cold places he had seen in fairy tales. Benny felt an instant connection to his new hideaway. It was perfect for a rabbit like him. Every day, Benny brought something new to the cave. One day he found a soft patch of moss to make a bed. Another day, he carried in colorful pebbles to decorate the floor. He even brought in a small puddle of water, which he carefully splashed from a nearby stream to have his own little pond. But Benny didn't keep the cave all to himself. He loved to invite his forest friends over for tea parties and storytelling sessions. There was Ollie the owl, who always had the best fairy tales, and Squeaky the squirrel, who could find the tastiest nuts. Even Greta the tortoise would slowly make her way to Benny's cozy cave for a rest and a chat. One day, a fierce storm rolled through the forest. The wind howled and the rain poured down in torrents. Benny's friends were frightened and had nowhere safe to go. Remembering his warm, snug cave, Benny ran out into the storm and gathered his friends. One by one, he led them to his shelter, where they all huddled together, dry and safe. The storm raged on outside, but inside Benny's cozy cave, his friends were warm and happy. As the storm finally passed and the sun peeked through the clouds, Benny looked around at his forest friends, all smiling and thankful. He realized his cozy cave had become more than just a hideaway. It had turned into a place where everyone could feel safe and welcome. From that day on, Benny's cave became the heart of the forest, a special spot where adventures began and friendships blossomed. And Benny, with his kind heart and adventurous spirit, knew that he had found something even more precious than hidden treasures. He had found a home. Once upon a time, in a cozy little burrow under an ancient oak tree, there lived a small fluffy bunny named Benny. Benny had the softest fur and the clearest blue eyes. He was known far and wide for his heartwarming smile and curious nature. Every evening, Benny looked forward to bedtime because that was when he would embark on his dreamy adventures. One crisp autumn night, as the stars twinkled like tiny diamonds, Benny snuggled into his bed made of soft leaves and moss. He closed his eyes and whispered, "Good night, world. Please bring me sweet dreams." Suddenly, Benny found himself in a magical meadow bathed in the golden glow of a full moon. The flowers sang lullabies, and the trees danced gently in the breeze. Benny started hopping around, and to his surprise, he noticed a sparkling path leading toward a distant mountain. His curiosity piqued, Benny followed the path. As he hopped along, he met a wise old owl perched on a branch. "Hoo-hoo, where are you going, little bunny?" asked the owl. "I'm not quite sure," said Benny. "But this path looks so intriguing. I just have to see where it leads." The owl winked. "Well, may your journey be filled with delightful discoveries," it hooted. Benny continued along the path until he reached the base of the mountain. There he met a friendly hedgehog named Holly. "Hello, I'm Benny," he introduced himself. "Hello, Benny. My name is Holly," chirped the hedgehog. "Would you like to come with me to the top of the mountain? It's a splendid view." Benny eagerly agreed, and together they climbed the mountain. Along the way, they laughed and shared stories, becoming the best of friends. Finally, they reached the peak and looked out over the land. Benny gasped in awe. As far as his eyes could see, the world was a patchwork of colors, with rivers that shimmered like silver ribbons under the moonlight. Benny lay down on the soft grass, feeling content. Holly leaned against him, and they both watched the stars glitter above. "This is the sweetest dream," Benny thought. As he began to feel drowsy, Benny heard his mother's gentle voice calling him to wake up. He opened his eyes, finding himself back in his little burrow, warm and cozy. "Wake up, Benny. It's a brand new day," his mother smiled. Benny stretched and smiled back, remembering his enchanting adventure. "Good morning, world," Benny whispered. "I can't wait for bedtime again." Once upon a time in a little green meadow, there lived a rabbit named Benny. Benny was not just any ordinary rabbit. He had big floppy ears, a furry white tail, and a heart full of dreams. Benny loved adventures, and his biggest dream was to create a magical den where all his bunny friends could come and play. One sunny morning, as Benny was hopping through the meadow, he stumbled upon an ancient, twisted tree. Around it, the grass was the greenest Benny had ever seen, and flowers bloomed in every color of the rainbow. Benny's nose twitched with excitement. This was the perfect spot for his dreamy den. He immediately got to work, digging and burrowing, carefully crafting tunnels and rooms inside the meadow's soft earth. Benny's friends, the squirrels and birds, noticed his hard work and flew down to help. They gathered acorns to decorate the walls and colorful feathers to make soft, cozy beds. There were rooms for napping, rooms for playing hide and seek, and even a big room with a tiny stage for bunny talent shows. Word soon spread about Benny's extraordinary project. Rabbits from neighboring meadows came hopping along, bringing with them carrots, lettuce, and berries to share. Every rabbit lent a paw, and together, they turned the dreamy den into a magnificent playground. Benny made sure there was a lookout tower so they could watch for any sneaky foxes. The den even had a little stream flowing nearby where the bunnies could drink and splash around. One evening, as the sun was setting, Benny stood on a hill above the den, gazing at his creation. Twinkling fairy lights, powered by fireflies, lit up the tunnels and rooms. Rabbits everywhere were laughing, playing, and snuggling into their cozy nests. Benny's heart swelled with happiness. He had done it. He had created a place where every bunny felt safe, happy, and loved. And from that day on, Benny's dreamy den was filled with joy, laughter, and endless bunny adventures. So if you ever find yourself in a quiet meadow, you might just hear the giggles of bunnies and see the twinkling lights of Benny's rabbit dreamy den. Once upon a time, in a cozy burrow nestled under a big oak tree, There lived a clever little rabbit named Benny. Benny loved adventures and was always curious about the world around him. One evening, as the sun began to set and the sky turned twilight blue, Benny's mother called him inside. "Time for bed, Benny," she said softly. But Benny wasn't tired yet. He wanted one last adventure before bedtime. "Please, Mom, can I go on one more little adventure?" he asked, his big brown eyes sparkling. His mother smiled gently and nodded. "All right, but just a short one. And be back before the stars come out." Benny hopped out of the burrow and through the garden, where the fireflies started to dance in the dusk. He followed a tiny path that led to a magical glade he had never seen before. In the glade, flowers glowed with a soft, otherworldly light, and a small stream babbled happily. As Benny explored this enchanting place, he met a wise old owl named Oliver perched on a low branch. "Hello, young rabbit," said Oliver. "What brings you to this magical glade so late in the evening?" Benny explained his quest for one last adventure before bedtime. Oliver hooted in amusement, his eyes twinkling. "I have a riddle for you, Benny. If you solve it, you'll have a wonderful dream tonight." Benny's ears perked up with excitement. "What is the riddle, Oliver?" Oliver fluttered his wings and asked. "I soar without wings, I see without eyes. I've traveled the universe to and fro. I've conquered the world, yet I've never been anywhere but home. What am I?" Benny thought hard, his little nose twitching. After a moment, his face lit up. "Is it imagination?" Oliver hooted with joy. "That's correct, Benny. Imagination can take you anywhere." Benny thanked Oliver and hurried back home, realizing the stars were just starting to twinkle in the sky. When he arrived back at the burrow, his mother was waiting for him. "Did you have a good adventure?" she asked. Benny nodded happily and hopped into bed. As he closed his eyes, his imagination took him on the most wonderful dream adventures, soaring over mountains, diving under oceans, and exploring far-off lands. From that night on, Benny knew that he had the greatest adventure companion within himself, his imagination. And that was the best bedtime discovery of all. Once upon a time, in the heart of the Whispering Woods, lived a little bunny named Benny. Benny had the fluffiest white fur and the most curious brown eyes. He loved hopping around the forest, playing hide and seek with his friends, and munching on crunchy carrots. But what Benny loved the most were bedtime stories, especially the ones his grandmother, Granny Willow, would tell every night. Every evening the sun would set, casting a golden glow over the woods, and Benny would hop to Granny Willow's cozy burrow. Her burrow was filled with soft pillows, colorful patchwork quilts, and the scent of lavender. Benny would snuggle up next to Granny Willow, his eyes wide with anticipation. Granny Willow had a magical storybook that would light up with fairy dust whenever she opened it. She'd begin each story with, "Once upon a whisper," and Benny's imagination would soar. One night, as Benny was cuddled up and ready for another adventure, Granny Willow opened the book, and out came a tiny twinkling fairy named Felicity. Felicity was lost and needed to find her way back to the enchanted meadow. "Can we help her, Granny?" Benny asked excitedly. Granny Willow smiled gently. "Yes, Benny, but remember, you'll need great courage and a kind heart." The book's pages turned, and suddenly Benny found himself standing on the edge of a shimmering silver lake, with Felicity by his side. They ventured through a land where flowers sang lullabies and trees whispered secrets. Along the way, they met a sleepy owl named Oliver who gave them a feather for wisdom, a playful fox named Finn who shared a golden acorn for bravery, and a gentle deer named Daisy who gifted them a petal for kindness. With each token, Felicity's fairy light grew brighter, until finally, they reached the enchanted meadow. The fairy folk cheered and thanked Benny for his help. Felicity hugged Benny and whispered, "You'll always be a hero in the Whispering Woods." Benny beamed with pride and suddenly found himself back in Granny Willow's burrow. "Did we really do that, Granny?" Benny asked, his eyes shining. Granny Willow nodded. "Indeed, Benny. Every story has a bit of magic, just like you." As Benny drifted off to sleep, He knew that with a brave heart and kindness, every night could be an adventure. And so, with the stars twinkling above, Benny dreamed of new tales and whispered secrets, ready for another night of Bunny Benny's Rabbit Sleepytime stories.